Government transparency is an issue that affects all of us all throughout the year and at every single moment as well. And so it's important to encourage that transparency, especially when that encouragement comes from one of our local leaders. Joining us on the program is Oakland County Commissioner Kristen Nelson from our 10th district, which includes Keego Harbor here in the greater West Bloomfield community. Commissioner Nelson, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. Good morning.
Yeah, glad to have you on to talk about a topic I know is very near and dear to your heart as a public servant and as someone that is subject to the Freedom of Information Act and government transparency's necessity in our community. You recently introduced a resolution that supports increased government transparency, particularly at the state level. Tell us about this resolution and what you are really hoping to accomplish or hoping to state through this resolution with the county commission.
Sure. Essentially, this resolution supports legislation that enhances that public access and transparency, and more specifically, to expand the application of the Freedom of Information Act to the Michigan legislature, the governor, and the lieutenant governor. When we think about transparency, the workings of government in the public light is a must. It's not a maybe, it's not a sometimes, it's not even a whenever possible. And this applies to elected officials representing people at all levels of government, from school boards all the way to Washington, right? So essentially, this resolution is supporting legislation that really focuses on including our legislature and our governor's office in the Freedom of Information requests. Presently, Michigan has consistently pulled toward the bottom of integrity rankings of states that are the most transparent and open in government. And currently, Michigan fully exempts the executive and legislative branches from the Freedom of Information Act, which requires state departments and local governments to provide those documents to the public and to journalists and registered lobbyists upon request. This is government should be transparent. It's good government. It promotes accountability and it provides information for citizens about what their government is doing. And it's a necessity in growing and restoring that trust and confidence in not only our government, but those people who are elected to do it.
And that's an important point you made there too, is that this resolution is in support of greater transparency, particularly through the Freedom of Information Act for our governor and for our state legislators in the House and the Senate at the state level, all of whom are at this point in time are exempt, as you said, from the Freedom of Information Act. But it's important that you said that because the point that you made that was really important is that the Freedom of Information Act is not just for journalists. It's not just for investigators. It's for everyday citizens, too, that are looking for a greater insight into how our government is working, whether it's at their local level in their city or their township or at the highest levels of the state of Michigan, which makes that resolution that much more of a necessity to you. And really, it's something that's supported bipartisanly at the state level. Senator Jeremy Moss, a Democrat, and Senator Ed McBroom previously introducing similar legislation.
Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing about transparency and open government, is that it's one of the things that isn't a split partisan issue. Open government and transparency and accountability is good government, despite party affiliation.
Kristen Nelson's with us, Commissioner from Oakland County's Board of Commissioners, District 10, which includes parts of Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, Waterford, and West Bloomfield, as well as a little bit of the city of Pontiac. More information can be found on our Oakland County government at oakgov.com. More information from the Board of Commissioners, oakgov.com/BOC. And taking this back to your side of things, as a public servant, as an Oakland County Commissioner, someone that is subject to the Freedom of Information Act in your work, for some politicians, and regardless of their party affiliation, their level of government, being subject to that at certain levels or for certain projects may be something they're not interested in. But or something that maybe they're even afraid of. But for someone like you and for others that support this sort of legislation, now why is that important to you to provide even greater access to this
Sure.
information to your constituents and constituents of various areas across our state?
Sure. When they're taxpayers, right? We're
Mhm.
utilizing taxpayer dollars and making decisions on behalf of our taxpayers and essentially those individuals who elected us into office. And the things that we do on any and all levels of government should be open and available for people. A democracy only works when people participate, and having accessibility to information and knowing how to access that information is critical. And let's face it, we live in a time and day where we're really trying to work as elected officials to really restore the trust and the confidence in not just our system, but us as elected leaders and individuals. So it's so important that we as elected officials maintain and walk with that integrity and hold ourselves accountable within transparency. Everything we do and say should matter, and it should also be accessible, easily accessible for individuals to be able to obtain that information.
Kristen Nelson with us, Oakland County Board of Commissioners, District 10, which serves us here in the greater West Bloomfield area and some surrounding areas as well. 30 more seconds with you, so I want to ask, where is this resolution at? Where does something like
Sure.
this go from here after that resolution has been introduced?
So that's a great question. The resolution at hand that Senator Moss brought forward, it just passed out of the Senate, and it's now moving towards the House. And upon it passing in the House, it then goes to the governor's desk to be signed. So I'm really excited to see this move through the levels of government. And at the end of the day, it just is a really great step forward in strengthening our government transparency and accountability.
Accountability is the key word there. Thank you very much for your time, Commissioner.
Thank you for having me.